Hello, my name's Andy Hough. I'm the founder and CEO of the Association of Professional Sales, a global body that's looking to set standards and recognise great practice in the sales methodologies, ecosystems and behaviours of companies. I'm really lucky to be joined today by Moyse, a fellow of the APS, a long-time sales leader in technology, and someone who I've been talking to for some weeks and months, sparring off quite interestingly about some really interesting topics. And today what we wanted to do is bring those topics to a wider audience. So Ian, welcome.
Thank you
very much for coming along and doing this.
Not a problem.
The first one on the cab rank is talking about sales recruitment and retention. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily in companies understand that the people are the actual most valuable asset that a sales force has or a company has. Can you give me and share some of your views with the audience out here about what you're thinking around sales recruitment and retention and its importance?
Yeah, I think it's the hardest part of the role of a sales leader, because that's the most important asset, is your salespeople. You can't achieve your target and do it all yourself. Whether you're bag carrying or not, whether you've got a target partially yourself, you're still reliant on the success of the whole of the team. And if you look at some of the industry stats, the average across all different sectors, the average salespeople aren't hitting target. And the industry and the world has changed. The buyer dynamic has changed. It's got harder to sell and get engaged with prospects. We're all buyers in ourselves, and we're all more informed than we've ever been before. So the job of the salesperson has elevated and continues to do so, which is why things like the APS are incredibly important. And I find recruitment the hardest part, because you're selecting something. It's not a small decision, it is a critical decision, and it often takes a while before you know if you got that decision right. And it's a human element decision. Yes, you can look at past performance and you can look at the metrics of that salesperson, you can look at their CV and you can meet them, but it doesn't necessarily correlate perfectly and predict future performance. It's an indication, but they may have been selling a different product, they may have been working at a much bigger brand, where, for all you knew, they could just walk through the door or appointments were all set for them. And everyone, of course, has always hit their targets, and everyone's never had a bad quarter. That's one of the stories you get, which isn't reality. So I think recruitment is the hardest part to do, because you're making a judgment call. It's easy to find someone and fill a slot, but you want someone that is going to be successful, is going to fit the dynamic of your business and your team, and then, of course, is going to be successful in hitting the numbers. And how fast can you get them there, and can you support them? So it's not just about the recruitment part, it's costly. It's not just costing the recruitment fee, but it's your time. How many candidates have you got to see? Do you wait 9 months, you've got no salesperson? Or do you recruit someone quickly, but take the risk? There's that fine balance. But the real cost is the cost of the failure. Not the cost of the recruitment fee, is how long does it take to find this isn't the individual, and then enter into that cycle? Can you live with 3 to 6 months to find out, actually, this isn't going to work, and then another recruitment cycle? You could end up with a year with no salesperson. Your target's not going down as a sales leader, right? You have that overall sales target to distribute out amongst the salespeople, and very rarely do I see that if you haven't got a head, your target goes down.
Yeah, true.
So that's the big challenge, I think. It's a moving dynamic, and you're dealing with humans, and they change, and they make decision changes, or their lifestyle changes, or their wife gets a job somewhere else, or the husband decides wants to move abroad, and for no reason of fault of your business or you lose a good salesperson. So it's an uncontrollable factor.
And so basically what you're sharing with the audience is you recognise, and I have seen this particularly in technology, that actually retaining people is extremely important, and then recruiting the right people either in the first place or to replace is exceptionally important as well. If I just can take some time to unpack the retention. At the moment, statistics show that actually in a sales organisation, on average, across the globe and also across all industries, sales people are turning over on an average of 37% per year. And we've done some work with UPS, and we've done some work with some other organisations, and show that actually the cost of losing somebody like that is about £150,000, which I think you touched on the cost. So what are your issues that you see about why people are leaving? What's the driver behind that?
So the way I look at that is in quite a simplistic manner, and it also rhymes, so it's an acronym you can remember, is earning, yearning, learning. So I always look at three metrics. Is for a salesperson, are they earning there or thereabouts where they want to be earning? Because if they've really got a big deficit and they're not earning the money, it's a trigger to go and start looking, well, maybe it's not me, I'll go somewhere else and earn better. Learning, are they being developed? Are they being supported? And that isn't necessarily formal learning courses, it might be purely from the manager and mentoring. So I always ask them, have you learnt more this year? Are you better than you were a year ago? Do you think you've like, oh yeah, I do this now that I didn't used to do, and I had a bit of training there, and I push people onto the APS courses and the events, a little bit of that, a little bit of formal training, mentoring. So it's coming, I was conscious of where are we adding that value to them as an individual. And the yearning is, are they, do they seem more positive in coming to work? You don't come in bouncing, oh fantastic, I can't wait to be here every day. But is it more positive than negative? There's always negative, whether it be systems, processes in any business. But if on earning, yearning and learning, you're in the upper quartile, you're never going to be perfect, then why am I going to look for another job? I enjoy the team and I'm getting on with stuff, I feel positive, I'm either earning or I can see the potential where I'm going to earn this, I've got a good pipe and it's building, and I'm being supported and developed, I'm not going to look. But if one of those falls, particularly into the lower quartile, that niggle steps off, it's that trigger to, should I start looking? So it isn't just the monetary, and it's about understanding your people, but those for me are the three basic dynamics that if I can keep people, when I check in with them in the upper quartile, so I don't do I get the annual review and there's the process, but I'm constantly, and my team will reciprocate this, I'll chat with them over a coffee, how are we getting on? And I'll use those words with them, earning, learning, learning, so they know what's coming. And it's an easy conversation, it's a relaxing, constantly checking in with, hey, oh yeah, I haven't earned as much, but I feel like I've really developed this year and I can see the potential. So there's more positive. Right. If they fall below it, you're going to have a problem. And it's not always easy, as I mentioned, to identify someone's going to leave, right? There can be outside influences and triggers that you can't control. Family matters, personal circumstance. I've had people in the past leave because they've had illness in the family and they've needed a lifestyle change. Right. You can't cater for that, but you can minimise the impact on the team. And the problem with the stats you see, for me, is if you've got a team and there's people leaving, it affects the people who stay. Because often it triggers them to think, well, am I missing something?
Good point, yeah.
If you've got 10 people and 3 of them have left in the last 6 months, does it trigger if they didn't think they were good people, maybe different, but there's always that worry for me of what impression does it give to the others who stay? So it's not just, is there a trigger moment that makes them want to look? And how do you avoid that? You can't be perfect, but are you doing everything you can in a simple fashion to constantly check in with your salespeople that there's none of these triggers?
I really like a lot of those points. One of the reasons we wanted to actually explore this more with you is I particularly like what you talked about in terms of learning. There's a Deloitte report that actually points out that 41% of millennials now will go from their current employment to another employer based on their individual development and career progression in terms of learning, not just for a higher role. Last question, Ian, and I think this really probably rounds out the conversation, which is the challenges of recruiting. And we've touched upon, do people really want to be salespeople? Yeah. So consequently, how do you tackle that issue of, is it just a job I want? Or do I really want to be in sales?
So there's a couple of dynamics there, I think. One is to not always be blinkered to recruit from your own sector. So I'm in technology and it's very easy to be blinkered to, well, recruit from a competitor or recruit from technology. I've recruited people over time who it's their first job in technology, but they've got a good sales methodology and sounding, and they've demonstrated, and they want to get into tech because that's their aspiration, and they've done really well. Now, it isn't always the case, but there's this perception of if they're not from my sector, there's an added risk. But you've got that risk anyway. If you've got the strongest salesperson and that's up here, but someone here isn't as strong but knows you'll always be in the tech sector, for example, which one's going to win? When I interview a lot of salespeople, unfortunately, and it'd be interesting if others feel this, but I find a lot of people look good on paper, but in reality, they've been in sales 30 years, but they don't address the fundamentals. I challenge them on the basics, the questioning techniques. How do they interact with me as a sales leader? Because that interview, you should, in my opinion, as a salesperson, be the best at that interviewing, because that's your job. You've been trained to meet people cold, so to speak, or make it warm by researching, be prepared, handle a meeting, take note. That's your job. And yet, often I see salespeople come into an interview and either demonstrate how they do sales, which has to be my assumption because it's what I'm seeing, and not be particularly good at that. Or what I do get is, well, yeah, but this was an interview. So they've gone into a different mode. But that's what I've got to judge by. And I see a high percentage, disappointingly, of salespeople coming into interview who don't demonstrate in that meeting. I want to hire you. I start it with, I want to hire you right now. It's how far do you take me away from that in your behaviour in the interview? Have you researched the company? Have you researched me? Do you know who knows me, who you know? Because I'll find that out. You know, have you demonstrated this is how you'll behave with a prospective customer? Impress me. Have good questions. Have good questioning skills. Demonstrate your selling capability right now. You don't get that in a lot of jobs, right? If you're going for an architect job or whatever, you can't demonstrate your skills during the interview. You can in sales, because it's what you do. So that's how I view it, and it's disappointing. I'd like to see a higher quality come through the door, because it'd make my job a lot easier.
So Ian, I think that the playing back here is actually your role as a sales leader is you've got to spend quite a bit of time thinking about these things.
Yeah.
You've got to think about actually the three aspects of, are people earning in terms of their potential? Are they developing themselves, and are you creating the right environment for that? And actually, are they actually feeling fulfilled and enriched? But also, are they actually at a point where they can be the best that they can be? And I think you raised a really good conclusion there, which is actually in an interview for a sales role, that's the place where you really can demonstrate how good you are through the research.
I enjoy interviews when I've gone for jobs, which it's the same as salespeople go. I enjoy it because it's what you've been trained to do. And you should be able to go into that polished and prepared and calm. And you're selling, guess what? The product you know the best of anyone on the planet, you. There's no training for that. You've lived you. So it should all be in your head, but still prepare about them. Demonstrate to that sales leader, I'm a safe bet. That's what they're looking for.
And I think it's a great place to wrap up there, because you've landed on one thing, which is actually, I think, the research we've been looking at, which is the reason people buy from anybody's trust. And actually, if you can't put yourself across in the meeting to a place by which there is maximum trust in you, then it doesn't really matter what product or solution you're selling. You're absolutely
Totally
not
agree.
going to be able to position it, and they won't feel as if they can buy it.
Totally
Ian,
agree.
thank you so much indeed.
Cool.
It's been
Thank
a
you.
real pleasure.
Take care.